What is up, ladies and gentlemen? But most of all, you ladies out there, thanks for clicking on another episode of Break the Silence. I am your host, Cyborg. Dear Lord, those Pelicans look good. Let's talk about it. Split cap! What an incredible performance from the New Orleans Pelicans. That was highly impressive. We saw a rematch tonight of the first round of the Western Conference playoffs last year between the New Orleans Pelicans and the Phoenix Suns. Last year, the Suns were the 1 seed. Pelicans squeaked in the play-in tournament as the number 8 seed. But tonight was a completely different story. This Pelicans team has taken a step forward. They are a true contender in the Western Conference, and I am all the way in on this roster. I believe it to be the deepest roster in the NBA. Maybe aside from the Celtics, those two teams are right there. But we are going to talk about this. We're going to break it down because I'm highly impressed by this New Orleans Pelicans team. And there are so many numbers that show why they're playing as well as they are. We're going to talk a little bit about some of my concerns with the Suns, but also some of the things they're doing well, because obviously they're 16-10 for a reason. They're the 3rd seed in the Western Conference. They're still right there knocking on the door. Tough week for Chris Paul. Chris Paul gets smoked in his first game back to the Boston Celtics. Tonight, they lose to the New Orleans Pelicans, and Zion dunks at the end of the game on the Phoenix Suns the same way that Kanye went out dunking on Chris Paul. First, please take a second to like and subscribe to the channel. We are so close to 600 subscribers. If you could please hit that little button, help your boy out, it would be greatly appreciated. But let's get into the game at hand. The Pelicans tonight had 128 points and were without Brandon Ingram and Herb Jones, two players that I really like. Brandon Ingram obviously has developed into an all-star level player, incredible on the offensive end of the court. Also, a very good defender. He's long, has a huge skill set, and is a vital piece to this team. But they kept rolling for their 6th win in a row to become the 1 seed in the Western Conference. Now, they're tied with the Memphis Grizzlies. This put them a half game ahead, and they're going to keep rolling. Herb Jones I really like because defensively, him and Dyson Daniels, unreal on the defensive side of the court. You have 2 elite defensive wings that match up beautifully with CJ McCollum, Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, Jonas Valanciunas, Trey Murphy. I really like. Trey Murphy didn't play great tonight. But Zion Williamson tonight flashed excellence, flashed greatness. He had 35 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists on 13 of 17 from the field. He shot over 70% from the field and was a plus 30. In a game they won by 11 points, Zion Williamson was a plus 30. He dominated in every aspect of this basketball game tonight, and to me, this might have been the best game of his entire short NBA career. I am just out here praying that Zion Williamson stays healthy because man, oh man, is he one of the most fun players in the entire NBA to watch when he's right. And his efficiency is what really stands out to you most. But let's talk about this Pelicans team. The Pelicans right now are 6th in offensive rating, 3rd in defensive rating. They're one of the 2 teams, I think, in the NBA that are both top 10 in offensive and defensive rating. I think the Cleveland Cavaliers are the other team. They play at a high level on both ends of the court, and that defense is what will translate. When you're talking about the playoffs, when you're talking about big moments, that defense is what will translate. And we saw this last year with the Boston Celtics. They were a young team that was finally seemed like they were starting to figure it out and made a run in the playoffs. When you're looking at this Pelicans team, it has the depth, it has the star power, it has the shot-making ability, it has the defensive side of the court. I really like their coach. It has Willie Green. It has everything that you need to make a run, but that defense is so important because on those nights that you struggle on the offensive end of the court, sometimes your defense can carry you and keep you in a close game. The concern with the Pelicans, obviously, is their health. Their big 3 of CJ McCollum, Zion Williamson, and Brandon Ingram have only played a combined 10 games together this year. You're 25 games into the season, so you kind of always have one guy out, and that's a concern when you're talking about seeding. And when you get in big playoff moments, you really want to have all your guys healthy. If this team can stay healthy, though, If those three guys could stay healthy or relatively healthy, this is a juggernaut in the Western Conference. And the thing that's interesting is when you watch them, you see all these things that they do great. And I went and looked up, I always look at different statistical categories to see, okay, where do they stand out? Where do they stand out? What's making this team so great? The Pelicans stand out across the board. They're top 10 in field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, top 10 in rebounding, assists, steals, second in the NBA in plus minus. This team is getting it done in every aspect of basketball. When you're talking about scoring efficiently, getting your teammates involved, rebounding the basketball, and on the defensive end of the court. They've won 6 games in a row, and they seem to have finally figured it out. Now, we haven't got to see a lot of Zion and Brandon Ingram together, obviously, because of both of them being in and out of the lineup so much. But when we get to see those two together, it will be electric basketball. Tonight, like I said, Zion balled out. CJ McCollum is playing excellent for them. The one concern I had a little bit was who was going to facilitate the offense. Well, they're kind of doing it by committee. Some nights, CJ McCollum initiates a lot of it. Zion is a very good passer. He's a very underrated passer. He had 4 assists tonight. CJ McCollum had 5. And then Brandon Ingram is also a very good distributor of the basketball. When you're looking at these 3 guys, the way that they can play they can all play off of each other, the way they can all, get their guys in their spots and set up the offense. I'm so excited to watch this team going forward because I think when you're talking about the most fun teams in the NBA to watch, this is a top 5 watchability. The reason that I like this team so much, though, is because of how great their depth is. They have their big 3, obviously. Then you have Jonas Valanciunas, Trey Murphy, who's an absolute sniper from the 3-point range. If you haven't watched him, highly impressive. He's highly athletic. This guy is really, really good. They have Herb Jones and Dyson Daniels, like I talked about, both elite defensive wings. Dyson Daniels is a rookie. Herb Jones in his second year. Both guys, working on the offensive side of the court, and both of them will continue to develop. But if you can play defense at that level, you're playable in the NBA. Larry Nance is electric off the bench. Tonight had 17 points and 9 rebounds, provided a real spark for them off the bench. Devontae Graham I've always liked as a scorer. Jose Alvarado has taken a massive step forward. He's very much an irritant on the defensive side of the court, which is very important when you're talking about trying to win a title. Having that guy that can get up in the opposing player's face and can, just make them frustrated. Try to, he gets a lot of steals. He's reaching a lot. He's sneaky, the Grand Theft Alvarado thing. But tonight he had 20 points, and his offensive game is really starting to take a step forward. He had 38, 36 the other night, and he's really taken a step forward for this Pelicans roster. I'm so in on this team, and I think when you're looking at the Western Conference and how wide open it is, right now you have to consider them one of the favorites in the West. I don't know what the betting favorites look like, but right now the top 4 seeds, Pelicans, Grizzlies, Suns, and Nuggets, are there any of those teams that you think in a playoff series the Pelicans couldn't beat? You look at experience being so important. And obviously the Warriors, maybe if they get their crap together, they're right there in the mix. But experience being important in the playoffs, but it's not like the Grizzlies have a ton of experience. And the Nuggets have been so injured that this core hasn't got to play together in the playoffs. And then the Suns, we'll get to in a second, but they've been a little up and down lately. But that's just an interesting thing. I think this Pelicans team has as good a shot as any team in the Western Conference. And if you told me right now that you think that they're the favorites in the West, I would not be mad at you at all. I think that would be a very fair take, very fair way to look at it. I do want to talk about the Phoenix Suns here for a second, though, because they have lost 3 games in a row. They lost to the Dallas Mavericks. They got blown out by the Boston Celtics. They really got blown out by the Mavericks. And then they lost tonight against the New Orleans Pelicans. These are 3 very quality basketball teams they just played. Now, the Mavericks are a little iffy, but they still got Luka and they still got players. So, not going to completely rip them for that one. But the problem is that their depth has really struggled because they lost Cam Johnson. And Chris Paul's been injured. He's coming off of an injury. Tonight he did play 34 minutes and played well. He's probably the best player on the Suns roster. But they put so much responsibility to Devin Booker on both the offensive and defensive end of the court to create offense, to set his teammates up, to defend the other team's, one of their best players. Mikal Bridges obviously is a very good defender. But then when you're doing that, you almost have no depth when Chris Paul is out and Cam Johnson is out. And this was one of the teams that I thought was going to take a step backwards. When we started the season, and I did a preview for the season. I said that I thought in both conferences, the two teams that would take a step back were the Miami Heat and the Phoenix Suns. I said the Suns would be like a 5 or 6 seed. Now they're slightly better than I thought. And I thought the Miami Heat would be like a 6 seed. They're slightly worse than I thought so far. But this is a team that lost Jay Crowder, now is without Cam Johnson, and had some tension between Deandre Ayton and their coach in the offseason. Kind of seemed like they have some demons when you're talking about playing the Mavericks or playing some of these teams. Maybe doubts start to arise in big moments. This team, though, is led by a very, very great basketball player. Devin Booker, who's a top 15 player in the NBA, and then has great leadership from Chris Paul. So you're never going to completely count him out. But we are talking about top-tier contenders in the Western Conference. I am personally hesitant on the Suns. I think that they're a very good regular season team, but if it came down to a playoff series, I would not put my money that the Suns are making it out of the West. I just wouldn't at the moment. I think they're a middle-of-the-pack playoff team that will finish somewhere between the 4 and 6 seed. But we'll have to see what happens. Like we talked about, this West is wide open. Because when you think about it, this Pelicans roster is struggling staying healthy. The Grizzlies' jaw is kind of in and out of the lineup. Jaren Jackson just came back from injury. Desmond Bane's been out with injury. Can they stay healthy? The Denver Nuggets, we know Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., significant pieces, struggle staying healthy. So if you get a little lucky as the Phoenix Suns, maybe you're right back there in the mix. Because do we believe in the Sacramento Kings that much? They've been playing much better. Or the Utah Jazz. I just don't know that I'm bought into those teams. So the Suns can turn this around, but I wouldn't put my money on it personally. But I'm all in on this Pelicans team. If you asked me to pick the best team in the Western Conference so far, it would be between them and the Memphis Grizzlies. Before the season, I picked the Nuggets to come out of the West, and I think they're right there. But this Pelicans team is so deep, and they play so good together. I'm so excited to watch the next game. I think these two teams play again on Sunday, and with how Zion dunked at the end of the game and they kind of got into it, that could be electric. That's a fireworks show waiting to happen. But appreciate y'all watching. That's all we got for you about this game. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Cyborg out.